النهارده انا ان شاء الله مجهز لكم لقاء مع واحد من اعمده الفيسبوك والانستجرام ادفرتايزنج اللي هو الميتا ادز عموما، واللي يعتبر هو وزير الفيسبوك بس بره في اوروبا والدول المتقدمه. ناس كتير فيكم ممكن تكون عارفاه بالفعل ومتابعاه. طبعا انا بتكلم عنه هو بين هيث. حتى انا اغلب الاسئله بقى اللي كانت بتيجي هنا في القناه، اغلب الاسئله اللي كانت دايما بتفضل محيره الناس، قلت برضو نشوف وجهه نظر بين ايه عليها، عشان ما يبقاش انتوا بتسمعوا من وزير واحد لكن من اتنين وزراء. طبعا لو انت كويس في الانجليزي لازم تتابع بين، كده كده هسيب لكم اللينك بتاعه تحت، روحوا تابعوه وخلينا ما نضيعش وقت كتير وندخل نشوف الانترفيو ده فيه ايه. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest joining us today. He's an expert in the field of Facebook advertising and the founder of Lead Guru, one of the greatest agencies that specializes in Facebook ads advertising. He also has a very great YouTube channel with over 160,000 subscribers, and he also has one of the greatest and largest communities on Facebook for media buyers and Facebook advertisers of over 180,000 members. Please help me welcome the one and only Ben Heath. Ben, thank you so much for being here with me today. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you very much for having me on, and that was quite the introduction. So so thank you for that.
First of all, I don't consider myself to be a beginner in Facebook advertising, but up
Yeah.
until this day, I still gain massive insights from what you share, and I know for sure that both our audiences will gain massive value from this interview. So thank you for being here with me today.
Great. Yeah. Well, that's good to hear. That's why I put out the content to try and help people. So that's good to know.
Perfect. So Ben, let's start by discussing and giving an introduction to our audience. So let's discuss a bit of a bit of your background, how you got started with Facebook advertising. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. So I actually started with Google Ads first. So I had my own business in various forms since 2010, 2011. And I quite quickly realized that once you get a product, just because you have a product doesn't mean it's going to sell. So sounds quite obvious, but a lot of people go through that step. And then I worked out, okay, I've got to learn how to sell these things that I'm trying to sell. And at the time, it was very much Google Ads. This is sort of before Facebook ads was really a thing. But learned the skill of Google Ads, ended up running Google Ads, helping out my mum's company. She was an interior designer, so I helped her out. They worked really well. And then, I was involved in the marketing circles online. I was, listening to what people talking about. And this new thing was Facebook ads. This would have been sort of late 2013, early 2014. Facebook ads have been around for a while, but what was new was the ability to run conversion campaigns that could really drive sales, as opposed to the previous campaigns that were very much focused on getting page likes and things like that. So I started, bought a course, went through the process, started running these ads for my mum's business. They worked really, really well in Facebook at the time, and did that for a few years, just sort of helping her out more than anything else. And then after a couple of years, realized this is probably a service that I can sell to other people. And that's when I started my agency, sort of the end of 2015. And sort of went from there really. And now we've worked with over 500 clients all around the world, spent tens of millions, maybe over 100 million. I haven't worked out the maths on that, on Facebook ads. And it's gone quite well.
That's amazing. But why would you say that? Why specifically Facebook ads that you are loyal to up until this day? So I noticed that even though platforms come and go, TikTok, Snapchat, you're still focused on Facebook, even with the massive competition, even with the rising costs, even with the, after iOS 14, the loss of data and not accurate conversions. Why Facebook?
So if you're going to be advertising online, there's effectively two massive players that have been around for a while now. And that's Meta as a company, which obviously includes Facebook and Instagram. And then that's Google. It's going to include Google search and YouTube and all that sort of stuff. And they account for just so much of the available online advertising. So I think if you're going to have an agency that lasts and that has longevity, being tied to one or both of those platforms is a really good idea. And actually in the last 6 months, we've also started offering Google Ad services. We sort of brought that back in. I think specializing for a number of years was really good, because that meant we could develop a lot of expertise in that platform. I could build my personal brand in the space, and that was really helpful for getting clients and then getting those clients results. So when TikTok came along, we weren't about to jump to something new that we didn't understand. We were like, we're getting great results with this. We're going to stick with it. It's what we know how to do. Now we've decided to add in another platform that we think will be around for a long time in Google. It already has. And I think it's, that's not going anywhere anytime soon. but I'm not interested in jumping on the new shiny thing. I mean, I did initially with Facebook ads at the time. Luckily for me, it's something that lasted and will last, because there's billions of users on Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp and the various platforms within Meta. So I got lucky in that sense. But I think there are other options that have not come and gone and will come and go. Like, I've spoken about this in other places, but I think there's a very good chance that TikTok, for example, is going to be banned in places like the US, maybe in EU countries. And then if you've built an entire agency around offering TikTok ads, you're in trouble, because that could go away overnight. You know, we've already seen India ban TikTok, and we've seen in the US government officials are not allowed to have TikTok on their devices. Like, these are the early steps to me of that process. So yeah, so I'm now thinking more in terms of, we want to be running ads for clients on the two major platforms that cover YouTube, Google, Facebook, Instagram. That's so much of the digital real estate. I feel very comfortable with those lasting for, you know, decades to come.
Perfect. So, Ben, I have a question about you working with your clients as an agency. So I noticed that you are working with clients from all over the world in different industries. So when it comes to you filtering your clients, so is there any specific requirements that you require? I know that you require, they have a minimum budget, but are there any other requirements that you require from them? How do you see if this client is a good fit for you or not? Because from what I believe, some of them might be a nightmare client. So how do you go about that?
Yeah, so it always happens. And no matter how good you try and be at filtering, you're still going to get through clients that end up being really difficult that you didn't anticipate. That's the nature, I think, of any service business, is some people that you interact with are going to be very difficult. We don't have hard and fast rules otherwise, but we sort of have things we're looking for when we're doing the initial calls with them. You know, how do they speak to our staff, for example? How do they conduct themselves? How do they interact? Typically, we're in quite a fortunate position because we have a minimum budget of $3,000 a month. It filters out a lot of the businesses that don't already have product market fit and haven't had proof of concept on the platform. So nearly everyone that starts working with us, we already know that their product or service can sell on Facebook and on Instagram with ads. They've normally been running ad campaigns before. And for us, it's a case of then improving results and scaling. It would be more difficult if we were taking business that had no idea whether they could sell what they sell on the platform and trying to get it to work. So I think that minimum budget requirement helps us in a lot of ways of avoiding difficult clients. They still come through, but so far that's what we've done to help with that. We also try really hard to set expectations. We've had a number of clients that come in and, 24 hours literally into running a campaign, they're saying things like, well, the results aren't very good. And we're thinking, come on now, it's been a day. Like, you can't assess any adjustments made within a day. That's silly. So trying to set those expectations of, this is a process. If we're really going to improve your results and scale up, this is going to take months, not weeks, and certainly not days. That helps too.
So when it comes to that, when it comes to these business owners, what are the most common mistakes that they make when it comes to Facebook advertising, in your opinion?
So are you talking about people in general, or the ones that have got to the point where they can work with us?
No, I talk about people in general. So they
People
just want to do ads. They expect to make some great results with ads when they don't know if their product is a good fit for the market yet.
Yeah. So the number one mistake people make is they don't see Facebook and Instagram advertising as a skill. They see it as a thing that will either work or won't work. So what often happens is someone will think, okay, I want to run ads for my business. They'll perhaps watch like a tutorial of mine on YouTube on how to run Facebook ads. They jump in, they create an ad campaign, and they launch it. And then 3 or 4 days later, it hasn't delivered any results. And what they then think is, oh, okay, Facebook ads doesn't work. And what they don't realize is that they just don't have the skills yet to make it work for their business. You have to start with the education that people like me can provide, but you always are going to need experience. You're always going to need to know how to adjust things for your particular industry. Is the same difference between the theory of learning something and then the practice of implementing it. So I give this example to help explain to people. If someone had never played tennis before, and you could put any sport or any skill in here, you never played tennis, and you go down to your local tennis club or whatever, and you enter into a tournament. If you've never played before, you are going to lose, and you are not going to get probably any points in that game. And you wouldn't then say tennis doesn't work. That would be a really silly thing for you to say. You wouldn't go, oh, tennis doesn't work. I tried that, it doesn't work. You would then go, you would understand, I'm not good enough at tennis yet to beat these people that have been playing for a while. And the exact same is true of Facebook ads, is people go into it and they're just not good enough yet and they assume the platform doesn't work. Whereas if they just stuck with it, if they tested with small budgets, if they gained that experience, then relatively quickly they could develop those skills to the point where they could compete. So I think that's the biggest mistake people make. And then tied into that, it being a skill and the marketplace being very competitive, is what competition you decide to play in. So bringing it back to the tennis analogy, even once you've got some skills, you don't want to try and play, you know, in one of the big opens, right? Like Wimbledon or something. You want to play in a really small, easy local tournament initially. So I see people trying to launch their first Facebook ad campaign and they're trying to sell, let's say, sports clothing of some kind. That's the brand they're trying to sell. It's like, wow, you're competing against Nike and Adidas and Reebok and Gymshark and some of the best businesses in the world at doing this. The chances that you're going to beat them is very, very small. And that's what you have to do to succeed. You need to beat your competition to succeed. All the rewards go to the very best. However, if you in your local town wanted to advertise window cleaning, you know, how many other businesses are advertising window cleaning in your local town, that service? Probably not very many, maybe a handful, depending on how big the place you're living is. Like I live in a town that's got 100,000 people in. If I'm advertising window cleaning services on Facebook and Instagram, there might be 5 other businesses advertising. That might be it. And how many of those are doing a good job? Probably not very many. So that's an easy competition to win. You can spend a couple of weeks learning and developing the skills and you can win that competition. So I think it's a whole mindset shift around this is Facebook advertising as a skill. Each individual niche in each location is like a tournament. It's a competition. You need to win that tournament in order to get great results, but you get to choose a tournament you play in. So start with easy tournaments and then work your way up. That's how I think people need to think about it.
You're basically saying that you need to stand out from your competition, and that's basically an easy task if you are a brick and mortar business, for example, working your way in a small town where there isn't a big competition to begin with. But what if you wanted to, for example, work in e-commerce, because that's what you can do. You like working on computers, purchasing products, let's say from AliExpress, doing drop shipping or whatever, branding yourself. How do you think about differentiating yourself from competition? Do you just specify and picking a niche in a certain area? What advice would you tell to these business owners in order to get right on the right foot?
So the first thing would be you really want a niche down. So you really want to go very, very specific, again, to reduce the competition. Then the other piece of advice I would say is you are only going to make that work if you are world class at advertising. And I mean world class. And when I say work, I mean sustainably. Yeah, you could find a drop shipping product that works really well for a few months, but then other people cotton on and then you're not going to stand out and everyone's going to be advertising the same thing. The people that do that well, and it's very hard to do, they are usually world class at creating ad creative. They are almost director level skill set to be able to put out ads that are so good that they grab people's attention and convince them to convert. There just are games that are much easier to win. And like drop shipping, for example, and doing so at scale over a reasonable amount of time is very, very hard. And it's just going to come down to the offer and the ad creative. You can really niche down, that helps, but you're going to have to be really, really good at it. There's just no other way around that.
So for businesses that you helped generate over, I saw some results over 16 ROAS and crazy numbers like that. And some of them, of course, were e-commerce businesses. In your opinion, what's different about them? Of course, you have massive skills in Facebook, but what about their offers that help generate these results?
Yeah, so often they will have a product that is superior to what else is being advertised. That's a huge factor. Maybe it's superior in price, maybe it's got better features, maybe it's more convenient, easier to use, whatever it happens to be, but there's often going to be a differentiating factor. And for the really good results, like when you're getting above 10x ROAS on an e-com business, that's nearly always the case. There's something like that. Also, what often happens as well is they've got a strong brand, and brand is really important. Brand is what makes people buy product A at 3 times the price of product B, even if the features look the same. And building a brand is something that takes time. You can use ads to help you do it. Lots of businesses have done that on all forms of advertising for, forever, but having that brand in there is really key. There are lots of businesses that we can advertise where the customer base know that the customer service is excellent. If they have an issue, they can return it really quickly. It's going to get delivered really quickly. The quality of the product's going to be good and as advertised. So these things are something that you can develop with your customer base over time. And that feeds into advertising results. Because then when we put out a new product for a business, the people who bought a previous one are like, the last one was great, I'm going to grab this one. And it was all super easy. So aside from the advertising things, as you mentioned, because there's obviously lots that needs to be done there, those are the things that move the needle.
So it's not about some magical campaign structure, or you did one campaign and then 2 ad sets and then 4 ads inside each ad set, and then you did ABO and CBO, or it's not about that.
Yeah. I mean, those things do matter. I don't want to say that they're inconsequential, but it's not the whole story. You could have the perfect setup, but if your product's not great, it doesn't matter. Whereas if you have an ad campaign that's not set up perfectly, but it's set up okay with a really great offer, that'll still work. Obviously, the best is when you have campaigns set up perfectly and a really good product, and that's when you see the really great results. So it definitely matters, but it's not the whole picture.
Awesome. So what about people who tell you that no matter how hard I try, no matter how many targeting options do, I still can't find my right customer. So I can't find the dream client that I need to focus on the detailed targeting, for example. How do I find my dream customer? Or is it a targeting problem? Or is it maybe an offer problem? How is your thinking process about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's nearly always not a targeting problem. It's nearly always an offer problem. Now, we do see targeting mistakes. It's usually when people are going sort of too narrow within the ad platform and things like that. So there are things that need to be corrected. But given the scenario you laid out where someone is testing lots of different targeting options and trying to make things work like that, when someone's gone to that extent, they're nearly always hitting the right people. Those people just aren't interested in actually what you're advertising. You think you're not reaching the right people, and if you just find them, they will be. It's like, no, the Facebook targeting systems are smart enough to work out your audience. If you've gotten it pretty close with your detailed targeting, you will be hitting the right people. They're just not interested. So I would definitely be more focused on the offer. And of course, the ad creative as well. Like, what are they seeing? Is it engaging? Is it interesting? Is it presenting the product or service in a positive enough light and convincing enough? Those are the elements that we would focus on. It's unlikely to be a targeting issue.
Awesome answer. So then when it comes to advertising on Meta or any advertising platform, what other digital marketing strategies do you believe work well in conjunction with these Meta advertising? Do you use, for example, Google Analytics? I don't know. What do you need? Understanding in funnels? Do you consult your clients on, you need to optimize your website, for example? What else do you do aside from advertising?
Yeah, so I think the customer journey, if you think of it, starts at ads. Let's say that's their first interaction. The immediate subsequent steps are going to be really important. So what does the landing page look like? What's the checkout process? Is that all smooth? You know, even things down to thank you pages to help with buyer's remorse or perhaps potentially upsells and stuff like that. So we don't actively do that for our clients and implement those things, but we've got enough experience where we're happy to advise and say, like, look, we think you're getting tons of add to carts, but not many purchases. We need to take a look at your checkout process and see what's going on here. So there are things that are going on like that. In terms of how that interacts perhaps with other ad platforms and other forms of marketing, I think that it really depends on scale. So if someone's just getting started, I just say stick to the one marketing channel, because it's more important that you get really, really good at that than it is that you become sort of average at a whole bunch. You're going to get better results being more specialized. Once you get to a certain level where you really feel like you've got a channel working well, then I do think it makes sense to expand out to other channels. You start with retargeting because that's where you're likely to see great results. So if you're generating sales, let's say from a Facebook ad campaign, why would you not also retarget those people on like a Google Display Network type campaign? It's a bit of a no-brainer. It's just an extra touch point where you can reach extra people. So that would be an easy in. So that's typically a process that we look to do, but I would only be looking to do that once a channel is like well established and you're generating significant profits and volumes through that, and you feel like not necessarily you've maxed that out, but you're doing well on that front before you add anything else in.
So I want to shift our focus a little bit into service-based businesses who generate leads. So when it comes to lead generation, is it a lead quality or sales problem? How do you determine which one is the issue? What methods do you use to find out, and how do you answer to the client?
That's a good question. So there's normally going to be variables you can look at. So let's say, for example, we were trying to work out, okay, is the sales team up to scratch here, or is it the lead quality? if there's a number of salespeople, let's say, handling the sales calls, we could look at the individuals, because it might be that some people within the team are doing really well and some aren't, which we've had happen before. And then you go, well, I think that's probably a sales team issue, because if you've got some people doing it well and the others not so much, then you probably need to make a personnel change there. So the thing about lead quality for me is I think this is something that people worry about too much. They worry, oh, my leads aren't good enough quality, my leads aren't good enough quality. And what I've found typically is, as long as you're clear in the ad campaign. So sometimes you're going to have really poor lead quality because you're promising something that's unrealistic, or you're advertising something that's not quite exactly what you do. It's a little bit more adjacent to that, but that gets you leads. You see that sort of thing happen often, and that's silly. But provided you are just straight up in your ad campaign and like, this is what we offer, this is what you're signing up for as a lead, from that point, I don't worry about lead quality, because anything you do to improve quality, it doesn't change the quality of the people becoming leads. All it does is filter out the lower quality ones. So you can just decide at what point you do that. So let's say you've got campaign A that's super easy for someone to become a lead, and you get 100 leads. If instead you ran campaign B, where you have all these filtering questions and all this added friction, you're not improving the quality of any of the leads that you would have got through campaign A. All you're doing is reducing the number of leads you get in campaign B, and you're getting rid of the ones, you're sort of disqualifying the ones that aren't as interested. So instead of 100 leads, you might get 40 leads in. I would usually rather go with campaign A, get the 100 leads in, because there are always going to be some people in that will convert, that the added friction and filtering and things that you can do to improve lead quality would have dissuaded them. They would have not wanted to come through. And it's just a case of putting in a bit more effort as whoever is working the lead. So if it's a sales team or a business owner, it's just a case of like, give all 100 a call, do it really quickly. If they don't pick up the first time, call them twice a day, every day for a week. Work those leads. It sounds really simple, but people don't do it. I've seen it happen so many times where someone thinks it's a lead quality issue, and it's like, okay, here's how we would follow up with the leads. We're going to send them a message, an email. We're going to call them every day, twice a day for 7 days. And you realize, okay, actually, these aren't bad quality leads. We just weren't getting through to them. And when we start getting through to them, we can get them to sign up for the service, whatever it is they were looking to sign up for.
Awesome. So I just want to touch on the fact that recently Meta they are disabling a lot of accounts. I know that your agency has a reputation of spending a lot of money. It's certified and all that. But for other business owners who are just starting out, or maybe you have not your business manager that is disabled, but your client's page or profile, for example, how do you deal with these situations where unexpected scenarios just happen and pose an important work?
So fortunately for us, our business manager is established enough, and we've had so much ad spend go through it that we almost never have ad accounts pages disabled, which is fantastic. So when we work with a client, we will get access to their page ad account through our business manager, and that really seems to protect things. Should it be that way? I'm not so sure, because we can get away with something that like other advertisers absolutely couldn't get away with. They would have things disabled, which creates a bit of an unfair situation. I often get questions from people saying things like, how on earth was this ad approved? How did that happen? I'll be like, yeah, but if that advertiser's just spent $15 million on Facebook ads in the last year, the rules get relaxed, that's for sure. I think the thing you need to shoot for is when you are relatively new, when you've got a new ad account, let's say a new page, be very, very careful. Don't go anywhere near the gray areas when it comes to Facebook advertiser policies. You want to stay as sort of simple and within those lines as possible. Once you've got it's a bit more established, you can start to use language that might be close to the edge, or techniques within ad creative that Meta might not be super happy about, but you can get away with a bit more. The big hope, I think, is Meta Verified. So Meta Verified has been announced recently. It's currently being trialed in Australia and New Zealand. And I've already heard of people that have signed up for it. And let's say they had an ad account disabled 5-6 months ago, and they've been trying to get this thing back online and just running into dead ends with Facebook support, who have signed up for Meta Verified. With Meta Verified, Meta are guaranteeing people a response within 2 hours if you submit a support request. They are then getting the support request answered by a person. And I saw someone the other day saying that they had been trying 5 or 6 months and they got their ad account re-enabled within 24 hours because they got through to a real person and said, please look into this, who had a look into it, they got it re-enabled, and they were back up in line. So my hope is that this trial is going to go well and they will start rolling out Meta Verified to other locations, and that could be an answer. And I think for most advertisers, paying $11.99 a month, $12 a month, will be well worth it to be able to get stuff back up and running, because it is the massive failure of Meta to not have this system better. They are leaving, I think, tens of billions of dollars every year on the table by not letting advertisers advertise who aren't doing anything wrong. They're not breaking rules. They just can't do what they want to do. So hopefully that's going to be the fix.
Awesome, Ben. So my last question for you, if you were to start from scratch, what would you do differently in order to make sure your advertising is a success? Would you just focus on maybe meta advertising, focus on other marketing materials? What would you do?
So given my expertise, I would definitely focus on meta ads, but you could do the similar thing with, say, Google. I think those would be the two obvious ones to target. The others, there's way less ad spend put through at the moment. What I would do would be to really focus down on a particular niche if I had to start again. So I started at a time where I could go broad. I could create a YouTube channel, for example, that was broad Facebook and Instagram advertising. And that was fine because there wasn't that much competition and, my videos could stand out. It's a lot harder to do that now. You need much better videos to be able to do that now. So if you try and create a video, how to run Facebook ads on YouTube, it's going to compete against mine, some of the other biggest channels. The chances that gets any views is really high. But if you created a video on YouTube, how to run Facebook ads for, landscape gardeners, for example, there's probably no other video on YouTube for that niche specifically. So that is how I do it. I position my entire agency, if I started again, didn't have my name, around a particular niche. I would create lots of content for those people to help demonstrate my expertise, deliver value. I know that's a good way of generating clients. And then I would also implement cold calling, outreach system where I'm calling all the businesses that are within my niche and saying, look, we'll get you a guaranteed number of leads every month. We know exactly what we're doing. We've done it for 15 other businesses in the exact same space that are just in different locations so that, they don't compete. Here's what our campaigns look like. You don't pay us unless we get you results. And that's how I would look to get started. I think that would be the easier way. What you'll also find with that sort of setup, so my agency is general. So that's how we built it, and we work with all different types of businesses, and that's really great fun. I really enjoy that, but operationally that can become quite difficult. Whereas if I was to start again and I went down a specific niche, if you know how to get great results for people who lay carpet, for example, carpet fitters, well, you can do it's operationally very easy. If it's worked in one location, you just recreate that campaign in a new location, and you know what you're going to do after week 2 and after week 4. You're not working all that out every single time if you go down that path. So that's what I recommend if anyone's thinking of starting an agency, it'd be doing that for sure.
Thank you so much, Ben, for joining us today and sharing your insight and expertise of Facebook advertising. It's been absolute pleasure having you on our show. Before we go, is there anything else you'd like to add, or any final words of advice for our audience, or where they can follow you or maybe apply to work with your agency?
Yeah, so the first place would be my YouTube channel. That would be where you're if you want to learn how to do Facebook ads, Instagram ads, that's the place to go. I've got 500 or so videos up there, so every aspect of Facebook and Instagram advertising that you can want, and then from there you'll see links to like my website and things like that. So that would be the main place to go. And the thing that I really want to get across that people don't talk about enough, that I'm really keen on and I've seen, is like any form of online advertising is a competition, and you need to win that competition to get the results. All the rewards go to the best. So just pick a competition you can win. And that is such a mindset shift for people. I think there's some markets you can't win yet. You're not good enough, but that's fine. Do one you can win, and then you can always move up.
That's a great advice. Thank you, Ben. Thank you for being here with me today. We'll bring this interview to a close right now. Thank you again. And to all our viewers at home, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time. بس كده يا جماعه، ده كان الانترفيو اللي معانا النهارده. يا ترى كام واحد فيكم فضل قاعد معانا للاخر هنا؟ متحمس اعرف ارائكم. اكتب لي تحت في الكومنتات كده ايه اكتر حاجه طلعت بيها من الانترفيو ده، ويا ترى حابب نكتر من الحاجات دي بعد كده ولا لا، ومين الناس اللي انت نفسك ان احنا نعمل معاهم انترفيو. اكتب لي برضه تحت في الكومنتات. لو الفيديو عجبك ما تنساش اللايك والسبسكرايب، واشوفك على خير ان شاء الله في الفيديو اللي جاي.